Red shirts and red carpet.
Red shirts and red carpet.
We're going back in time.
Going back in time, yeah. We're going back to circa, well, when did I start there? 2004. That's
Wow.
when I started at Games Workshop in the Square One Shopping Center of the suburb of Mississauga, Ontario.
Mississauga,
Yeah. So, so today's video is like kind of a random one, I guess. Chris and I, actually, this is the store we met at. I started working there a bit before him, but then, and then he kind of got hired later. And so yeah, it's a bit of a throwback, a nostalgia thing of kind of what it might have been like in those days working there. I was, so a little story about me, I guess. I was, that would have been the store that I was like, I guess for Chris as well, to an extent. I probably was like our home store. Although we never knew each other before then or whatever.
Yeah, I was at the time, I had started there when I was about 11, which would have been, like 1995 or something like that. Yeah, 96.
Like as a customer, yeah.
As a customer, and then they opened the store in Oakville, like the big Battle Bunker, which was a little closer to my house. So I started going there a little bit later on, which is why we never met.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think my first minis I was about 12 or 13, and yeah, similarly, I didn't really live super close to it. Like it was about, I don't know, half an hour on the bus or whatever, or 15-minute car ride or something. But that was I was going there like, you know, maybe not every week, but every other week or a couple times a month, playing there like, you know, I think Tuesday or whatever, Wednesday. I think it was Tuesday at the time.
Was it Warhammer night?
Was Warhammer Fantasy Battles night or whatever, Veterans night. So you had to bring there. I remember it was a massive undertaking to get my Heil Farmy painted. One of the springboards, a friend of mine, Nick, we played a team event. So it was like we both had to get 1,000 points painted. So we were literally like these two like 13-year-olds and playing all these, because a lot of the other players were like adults because they had money or whatever, and we'd be in there playing these stupid league games or whatever. Yeah, it was an interesting time. It was a good time. You know, the store itself, if I can describe it to you, so it was in a mall. It was, I don't know, 500 square feet, maybe 600.
Oh, maybe 500.
It wasn't super big. It was like
maybe 450.
I would say it was like, if there was like, there was usually at any given time like maybe 2 staff in the store, and then if you add like a couple of customers, you're probably already feeling it or whatever, and then and if you add another 5-6 people, you're like, it's busy in here or whatever. So just as you imagine it, it's the blood red carpet, which, so I don't know how it survived all those years. That store was there for like, oh God, when did it open? Probably 96 or something, or 95, and then I guess whenever you were probably an early customer of that when the store opened.
Yeah, I was. I think I discovered it almost because my dad used to take us to Square One Mall like back in the day, like on Saturday mornings, where there's part of like a little routine of going to the grocery store, and we just literally I think just stumbled across it. So I probably found it like pretty early.
Pretty early, yeah. So it would, and I think it closed or it moved uptown or whatever, out of the mall in. Someone's gonna roast me because I don't remember the exact date, but 2000. It was around when we opened, wasn't it? After we opened.
Yeah,
around when we opened.
I think it was around when we opened.
2014, 2015, 2016.
Something like that.
Somewhere in that era. So it had a good run over there.
For a long period of time, Games Workshop in Canada was like exclusively in malls. This is probably pretty common across the North American chain as well.
Yeah, so
their fascination with they had to be in malls. They had to be in malls.
The gentleman running the Canadian branch, that was the strategy. It's like we're going to get in because there's malls in every major city. Yeah. I don't think it was a bad idea, actually. I think it probably helped grow us.
It's a sign of the times, I think, like where, you know, malls were kind of the sort of like place you went to it's kind of interesting, like malls were a place you went to see like everything. Yes. Like in the 90s and even early 2000s, you had like music stores, sports shops, collectibles. You could like literally, if there was a shop you were interested in like going to, like generally the mall would have a place like that.
Yep.
And then, you know, as you know, the 2000s went in, closer to like 2010s, like it's just a lot of those little like niche shops got pushed out by the drive up in rent and the more easy money like clothing stores, tech companies, all that stuff. Started to move into those spaces, right?
Yeah. So it was interesting because during that time, I witnessed the store. Or during the time I was both a customer and an employee. I got to witness it go from the red carpet store to a more modern store in like one fell swoop. There was a renovation. And, '09 or '10 or something. That was like, I was like, whoa, this is so weird. And but yeah, so they had some funny quirks. You know, they had like I remember on the facade they had like literal these like spikes jutting out, the classic Games Workshop logo, with the interesting font type and everything. And for a while in the cabinets, they had some really wacky, cool items. They had like I remember they had like an Abaddon like bust or whatever that you could.
Oh yeah,
it was like forge rolled or whatever, you know. And there was like other things like that. There was like Asserman head or something.
One of the things that made me fall in love with Warhammer and really get hooked was when I first started going there in '96. One of the employees that worked there actually painted the Blood Angel Studio army.
Yeah.
And it was in the cabinet in the shop, and I was just like, I was in just absolute awe of it.
Yeah. No, that's the funny thing is like...
You're like, this guy's like literally a celebrity to me or whatever.
Yeah.
You know,
like some of the... so this is a bit of another like a discussion a little bit on like early... Or like what Games Workshop would have been as a company at that time. Like there's stuff in like the codexes in different publications that weren't necessarily like from... You know, they were just like, they just sourced stuff from wherever. They're like, oh, this guy has like a cool army. Let's take photos of it and put it in the thing, right? Like, they didn't. It wasn't as like professional or as organized as they are now. Even the people like, I think it was Mike McVeigh or whatever. Like some of these guys that were like in charge of their studio stuff, like they were just ad hocing stuff all the time. They were just making stuff up and like just like they're like, oh, make a cool thing for the codex or whatever, or you know. So he built that like Horus Heresy diorama or whatever with the Emperor that became so famous or whatever. So so I'm trying to continue picturing the store. So it's we have 4 tables or 3 gaming tables.
And they were 4x4s at the time.
4x4s because that was like what they could fit. And coincidentally, they were also like built. They were just sitting on top of these like big cabinets that would also store.
They were
things.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was a piece of furniture I wish we had.
It's incredible,
could still have.
man.
Yeah,
like you put a table on top, and you've got storage space with these great drawers that pulled out that you could put like at the time. It was Blister Town.
Yeah. Oh my God! So you'd open a drawer. So you had all these drawers you pull out, and blisters used to come in these like little cardboard boxes.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 to a box, and so you would like have like rows of them, and you would like handwrite what's in them, so you could quickly like you know it's like a I don't know weird filing cabinet thing you're trying to do. And which made inventory time a disaster because you would have to like pull every single one out and count them and whatever. And it was before we had little, you know, mobile scanners and things. So you would literally physically tick the things on a sheet.
Or you had like runners. You're like, got one guy at the computer, and then everyone else is yelling out what they have with certain items.
And then in that store we had a little closet which we named the Blister. It was just big enough to fit. It just had an electrical panel.
1.5 jackets.
You could put a couple of jackets, and then there was just like a vacuum and an avalanche of other BS, like random extra shelving, pegs and things like that for the wall. Because sometimes you have to re-merchandise. So quite often you would open the thing and stuff would fall on you or whatever, and then another staff member would just laugh at you because it was your turn to clean up or whatever. So we had that going on, and then the store kind of, even during the time I was there, it changed a little. Like in the early days, in the days that Chris was talking about, it was like so much Blister Town. Like the walls were filled. Like it was the opposite of these days. Like I mean, now there's very little blisters. It was the opposite. It was like all blisters and some boxes. And so then the blisters, it was like. Yeah, you had to really, like, when you were a customer, you were, like, digging for stuff, because it was just, like, even if you tried to organize it, stuff got misplaced, and there were so many, like, various options of things, because you were, like, there would be, like, I don't know, a blister for a guy with a missile launcher, and then the same blister with a guy with a melta-gun, and the same one with a guy with a flamer, and you had to, like, have extras, and so actually, funny enough, the inventory was actually quite bloated, probably, once you factored in, like, specialist games and all these other games. I wouldn't be surprised if the inventory at that time was almost like more than, or valued more than it did later, because once they started boxing things, it got like a little more, they got smarter about it, but it was like all I can say is inventory time in that era was the absolute worst. Like,
were you there during like peak inventory, like when they had like 6 boxes of white lines on the shelf?
Oh yeah. Well, there was one inventory that was the absolute worst inventory of my life or whatever, which had to do with, there was like 3 of us. I don't know what it would. Normally it would be all hands on deck, and you'd have like all 5 staff members or however many doing it in one, and they try and do it in one night, which was stupid because you would finish working like a Saturday or something, and then you're like, okay, they pay you for it, obviously. So, and there would be some free food or something. We're like, yay, free food. But they're like, yeah, we're going to count every item in the store. And I guess in theory, if you had 5 staff members, you should be able to do it in like a night, like talking like 5-6 hours. So maybe you're there till like midnight or something. So we had like myself, I was the like utility man, part-timer who could work lots more than regular like I would work like sometimes up to 30 hours a week, sometimes less. And then you'd have your like traditional part-timer who would work like, I don't know, 10 hours a week, 2 shifts, and then you had your full-timers or whatever. So that time was literally just me and the full-timer, and the other part-timer, because he was like 16 or something, he helped out till like 9 or something, and then he's like, I gotta go, man. I gotta go, and like I got a test tomorrow or something like that, or whatever.
Kid thing. Yeah.
And so then the two of us, Ash, if you're watching, I'll remember this. Where the hell were you, by the way? I don't know. I think Ash was my boss. I think he was probably out of the country or city, or he probably was doing a visit elsewhere and whatever, because he was an area manager, or whatever. and yeah, myself and this gentleman Jeff, we counted all the items, and we were still counting the next day. Like I think Ash rolled in the store. It's like I think the store opened at, I don't know, noon on the Sunday, and he's like, "You're still counting."
Oh my god!
This is also like I mean, he had a phone, but like it wasn't easy to reach people.
Yeah, you're not like just texting or messaging.
No. So that was and then I remember I got super sick, obviously, yeah, because I didn't take care of my body at all or whatever, and I was probably also breathing in really dusty things for like almost, I don't know, I think it ended up being like 18 hours or something.
Just to contrast
stupid.
this, okay?
It's so stupid.
One of the last inventories I did at Games Workshop in like 2014. Yeah. I did by myself in under 2 hours with a scanner.
You just counted the entire store by yourself. Right. Yeah. So this is big difference. This is kind of I guess this would be a story essentially about like the tech at the time. Like we had
and the inventory bloat. Like there was way more stuff.
There was a lot of stuff.
A lot of more items. A lot more of each item.
There was more of each item. We had a very interesting thing is, and this is not a knock at all about the Lord of the Rings or Hobbit strategy game, but in that era there was it was necessary to keep a full stock of that or whatever. I don't know if it was part of the licensing or whatever. So even though it was an interesting product because it had like when the movies were fresh, it was doing very well, and then it kind of like we see in Marvel or Star Wars or any of these other franchises, like when the movies are not out, it just loses appeal. It just kind of dives down. And so we had a whole section that we had to maintain. Although funny enough, none of us really played it, which was kind of like we played it a little bit, but like it wasn't the game that we were passionate about, which was too bad. But I remember also we literally had a young guy that was his like game. So we're like, okay, you have to count this every month or whatever. There was one month he wasn't there, and we had to like count it. We're like, I don't know what any of this is. What the hell? What is? I don't know. It was like what's a Dull Amreth night or whatever. Like you had to like look up these because they had these like random small and like Lord of the Rings was the ultimate product range of like tiny little. You know, because Games Workshop would make a model of anything. Like Tolkien could have written a single word about something, and they'd be like, "Let's make a model about it's Farmer Maggot or whatever." And his like
with
dogs
his scythe or whatever.
And so
sure they sold a lot of those.
Yeah, we know we didn't.
No.
So yeah, this is really just going to turn into a video of dumb stories about working there. I guess the other thing we could touch on is like the hiring process. So this is really.
Oh my god!
So this is also like
this is a big thing that's changed.
This is also a bit of a thing. Again, this is all going to become. You're going to come to the conclusion of how kind of like loose and fast things were, and how it was actually kind of not that professional. There's a lot of things that went on that were like really simple, not becoming of what the size of the company really was, and how much. And maybe it was because of the growing that they were doing. But like after what year would you say? I guess once they merged. 09 or 010 or whatever.
With the U.S. business,
things got very serious. Very
they got
quickly.
a lot more corporate. Yeah,
corporate very fast. Yeah. So
was that 2009 maybe?
So maybe it was just Games Workshop Canada. It was just run.
Probably had to do with it was probably in sync with the global recession or whatever.
Yeah. So Games Workshop Canada. I guess maybe that was the main problem. Was it was just run very like just soft. I guess So when I got hired, so I worked at the nearby Walmart, which was just like across the hall or whatever. It was attached to the mall, and so it was great. I was in the store. I was in the Games Workshop all the time on my lunch breaks and whatever, just popping in and being that annoying kid. Although I had money then, so I could buy. They probably loved me because I was just buying things or whatever. And and then I was like, oh, do you have any jobs? And the manager's like, yeah, apply. And then the manager would like had me. Their scheme was to have me play a game against another person applying. So as if to make this like, which was weird because you're like, we're gonna make this like weird, like it's not a competition, but the two of you are gonna think it's a competition because you're kind of like, how can you not? You're like, oh, we both want this job, but we're playing a game.
I'm gonna kill you. Yeah.
It was it was. We both ended up getting hired, but. And then there was this dumb, some of you, I'm sure there's alumni who've worked in that era. There was like a quiz you had to do, which had to
That's funny. Yeah. Did you have to bring any of your painted models? I guess
yes.
That was bizarre to me. Like even when I got hired,
you had to be,
I brought a case with painted models. I'm like, they would never do anything like that now.
They were like, no, the standards were you had to be like, it was interesting, actually. I have some good memories of that, of like the staff that would help me during those eras. But they were like, they're like, no, you got to be like in the hobby and painting and playing and have painted armies and which was funny enough for me because like I had a painted army, but it wasn't good enough to put in the case or whatever. So my army didn't get to be on display or whatever because I was like just like I had a painted army, but it wasn't up to the standard or whatever. So. And then they were like, oh yeah, and then during your like first little while, they're like, oh, you need to get a 40K army up and running and a Lord of the Rings army up and running. And I was like, okay. I'm like, I make $7 an hour.
Yeah.
And,
okay.
And even with the discount, you're like, I got to buy these armies and because they weren't giving them to you. I mean, you got some stuff for free or really cheap for sure. I mean, there was definitely cases where Ash or someone was like, I found this in my car, and it was like a whole army or something, and it's like, have it. You're like, okay, sure. So all of that, and I would say probably the slight era before me was probably even worse because you probably also needed to. That's when they really heavily stocked like the Battlefleet Gothics and the Necrobundas and the War Masters and all these like tiny, and you had to be like fluent in all of them. And depending on how your manager was, like some of them were really, really, I don't know how to call it, hard or whatever. They were like, yeah, you need to do all this stuff really well, and you're like, again, I'm only making like $685 or whatever it was.
Oh my god!
You want me to do all this stuff? So I guess what's interesting about the Games Workshop career, and this is probably still true now, is like you had to be a bit of a, I guess like you couldn't. It wasn't a simple retail job. You had to kind of be like.
No, yeah, it was
the all-round guy.
It's interesting because, like, I think that the old hiring practices definitely led to a lot of people getting hired for their hobby acumen, but people that didn't have like any sort of like social ability to like talk to a customer,
very common,
run a demo or something like that, and so that was kind of one of the byproducts. You could probably make the argument, has the pendulum swung like too far in the other direction? I'm sure that's been the case in some instances. People watching this have probably been in a Games Workshop and had the Ron Swanson moment or whatever when they walked in and they're like, they're just they're like a fine hobbyist or whatever, and then the person they're talking to, they're like, get away from me, I know more than you.
I know more than you.
And no, there's nothing wrong. That person's just trying to do their job. But at the end of the day, the complete 180 or whatever in how they hire people. Like now, you don't have to have any knowledge really about the hobby at all. It's all more about, are you interested? And then what's your personality like? What are your like social skills, your sales abilities, your kind of personal organizational skills, that sort of stuff, because you're actually running a business or whatever. Yeah. And it was also more common in that time to have multi-staff stores. Now they're moved into an era of single staff stores or whatever. Yeah. But this is very true. There was a lot of staff. I remember the staff that lasted the least were the usually great hobbyists, terrible salespeople. The funny thing though, and this is obviously like a little, circumstantial based on our own experience in our own area. Like I'm talking more about Canada here, obviously, but I did mingle with like quite a few people. I had the opportunity to meet a lot of the U.S. people, over the years, because we would basically, we were one business, and we would fly down and I'd meet the other managers and stuff like that. So there was something about the Canadian business, I think that grew out of like the situation you're saying, like where you had like this more looser, there was this, I think, acknowledgement back then that you weren't making a lot of money and you were there because you cared about Warhammer and about the people. And I think the people running the company, I'm not going to throw names out there, I think the people like running retail and stuff like that, they knew that. Yeah. And they knew that they couldn't be necessarily like as brutal or cutthroat, or and they had to like give a little bit of rope, I think, to an extent. And I think the result was that, like, you know, people in the Canadian business actually stuck around a lot longer than what was average, I think. Yeah, when I saw the comparables
there
in the US.
There are still some guys around that are like pushing 20 years or whatever. Yeah.
People that work for me, they're still there too.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It is pretty cool, yeah. So I guess you got a mixed bag. Sometimes you got, because of the way they did it, sometimes you got fantastic people, like just, you know, they're great salespeople, great hobbyists, great, could run the stores really well and did well. And then sometimes, it was a bit of a revolving door. We definitely had some people that, wouldn't last a week or whatever. And then even when the merger happened, literally, what happened is like a bunch of people left because there was like this exodus of like people either leaving retail or trying to escape because they knew they'd get either shuffled or packaged or whatever. And this is like 08 or 09.
This is funny too, because like this is the time they decided to do all full timers, right?
Yes,
that was part of the.
I was So I had a funny end to my career. So somewhere around my fourth year or whatever, fourth year, this was happening, and they were like, okay, we're going to part-timers going to be phased out because they were like reducing staff, I guess, and they were like, we want to be more efficient and lean, agile. This is the buzzword. And I was like, okay, I guess. I was finishing college, so I wasn't too perturbed because I was like, well, this was my main reason to do this job was because I'm, you know, whatever. I'm doing my college work and I want to make a few bucks, might as well enjoy doing it. And so what happened is like Ash was my manager, or the guy who ran our store plus a few other stores. He actually ended up taking on more responsibility and then moving to the States or whatever. So he wasn't in charge of our store anymore. So there was just a couple of full timers that were kind of like semi-recently hired, and one of the again, I'm not gonna name names or whatever. The area managers or whatever is like, okay, well, we got to pick a guy. One of you guys will be the manager, and of the two, one guy says, "Well, I don't want to be manager." So I'm like, okay, well, I guess you're gonna get not me, but the other guy who was still there who was like, I guess I'll do it or whatever. And it was a disaster because
no way,
because you had you didn't go through any formal process. It was kind of just a circumstance. Like they literally are like, we have no, like, we want to open the store again tomorrow. So we're gonna just like put you in charge. We'll train you. It was one of those things. They're like, look, you know what? Whatever. We'll train you up. It'll be okay. Worst case, we fire you too. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's. But
then, the problem is literally after that happened, all the other big changes started to kind of kick in, and they kind of got
so it was
lost
classic like big company or like merger where there's a lot of people just lost in the ether because there's so many other moving parts and things going on that you don't have there's no time. All the corporate entity just looks at it and says like, well, is the store looks like they're opening and closing on time? We can tell by the activity in the computer. They're way off in Canada over there, so whatever. We'll get to them when we get to them, you know. So, anyway, so this guy was not a great manager, and he went through a lot of staff. And so what ended up happening is every time I was like ready to be let go or packaged or whatever, that he would have to fire someone because they were awful. So then I would be sticking around by default, so I had the nickname of the like weird like I was the guy, the assassin.
Assassin.
I was the guy who would just like
just secretly killing guys,
keeping my job alive.
it was like this mythos thing, like it's like
I lasted like another year and a half or something.
Can't get rid of Jay or whatever. So Jay was the last part timer in Canada.
I was.
Even my guys got packaged out before Jay.
Funny, and it I'm sure it helped my cause that I could like for whatever reason, even though I worked a third of the, or whatever, half the hours that the full-timers and the manager, but I had the same numbers or higher numbers or whatever, because I knew all the customers, so I could roll in and just sell them anything or whatever, and these guys were just like...
Jay also had this special power of... he was the chosen one or whatever, so he had ultimate authority in the store without like really having the power. So there'd be these moments where the manager would try something, and then Jay would be like, "Well, that's not gonna work or fly or whatever," and then the room would go silent. So there's like this power crisis or vacuum that would happen.
Well, mostly because I was sort of like I still had my hand. Or had kind of contact with the previous kind of the Games Workshop Canada managers that kind of like, I guess like, I grew up with or raised me up through that time or whatever, and so I guess I had the ear of those people, so I guess if things were really bad, I could be like, hey, this is bad, fire this guy or whatever, and they might take my word for it potentially because they're like, well. Anyway, it was an interesting time. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times.
I think like the way I always describe it, there was a certain soul to it back then.
A lot of soul in the store.
A lot of soul. Mm-hmm. Not a lot of pay, but definitely some soul. You were there. You were there because you wanted to be there.
You effectively usually had a group of guys. This usually was guys. I don't blame it. Like there wasn't a lot of women working there, probably because it was usually like a gag of like guys between the age of like 16 and 22 or something, and
for sure,
just kids with their toys and being idiots. And sometimes it worked really well, sometimes it did not at all. There was definitely stores that what we would call got exterminatus.
Yep.
Where
we go look it up what that means, and then apply it to a retail store. Or a virus bomb.
Or a virus bomb.
Or whatever you want to call it. Oh my god.
What's the cannon on Abaddon's
Walk in with a full new staff.
Armageddon gun
and then wipe out the
Yeah, so they would fire every staff member in one swoop.
That's right.
Clean sweep it. And maybe fire some customers too or whatever. So these are cases where there would be like obviously stealing, straight up like taking cash out of the till kind of thing, and products being stolen and customers getting free stuff, and the oversight wasn't great sometimes. It was so yeah, it was fun though. There were times where it was super fun. Like I think especially when the store was like really doing well at Christmas times or whatever, and we were like hitting our sales goals, getting because the company didn't necessarily pay you more money, but you did get more free stuff or whatever. I think a lot of people, it was generally the people that thought that they were going to like, unfortunately there was like people that were like made managers quickly, like Chris, because they were like, oh, this guy's actually good and knows what he's doing and whatever, and he's reliable. And then unfortunately you had the people that were like full-timers, but were like not going to be managers, frankly. But they thought they might. They're like, well, and the company would be like, yeah, maybe, sort of.
Oh yeah, they would dangle those people along.
They would dangle them and give them these like stupid assistant to the regional manager jobs, and those were not good. Those were anyway. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't know if that was insightful at all, or if this was just a completely random weird video. If you have any questions about that time or era, send them in.
Yeah, I mean, we'll do a video maybe about like what it's like to work there now. I think like I've been out of that company for like 9.5 years now, but I was still very much in touch with a lot of people that work there, and it's pretty much the same company I left, more or less, like in terms of the corporate structure and how it kind of operates today. They're definitely a lot more efficient about things.
Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah.
All right. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've watched to this long, maybe you can give us a subscribe and a like for doing that. And then we've also set up a Patreon if you'd like to give us $3 a month to become a member. There's some perks that come along with that. Until next time, take care.
Bye.